Dark Souls. Dark Souls has left a tremendous impact in its wake. Now old and grumpy, it sits and looks out over the achievements of its descendants like Elden Ring. But in its prime, Dark Souls commanded the attention of the gaming world, and was, perhaps, the first game to truly gain traction because of YouTube videos. It really did gain a lot from the interconnection between players, the game, and lore speculation videos, and it created a unique community experience. Now, more than 13 years after its Steam release, has everything been said and done about this game? Is there anything left to say? I think yes. I have been playing Dark Souls since it came to Steam all those years ago, and while I return to Dark Souls 2 the most, and while I think Dark Souls 3 is the best co-op experience, I still hold Dark Souls 1 in very high regard. And recently I have been pondering a question. What is it about Dark Souls 1 that makes the exploration of its lore and world more engaging and enjoyable than its sequels? There are still lore videos coming out on Dark Souls 1 over a decade after release. Channels like Hawkshaw or Smotown started a brief lore renaissance of the game. So why do people return to Dark Souls 1's lore more than they do its sequels? And I think I found a satisfying answer, and so I want to share it with you. The answer as to why is that I think Dark Souls 1 is partly a detective game. It integrates its world and lore into its plot in a unique way compared to its sequels. So what is Dark Souls' plot? Well, if you've watched dozens of story summaries of the game, like I have, you probably already know it. It goes something like this. There was first the Age of Ancients, then the first flame spontaneously combusts, then Gwyn, the Witch of Izalith, Nito, and Seath wage war on the dragons and establish the Age of Fire. But with fire comes disparity, and the first flame fades, leaving chaos and the decline of gods in its wake, along with the curse of the undead and the impending darkness. Our playable character is one such undead who seeks the fate of our kind. We travel to Lordran, ring the bells of awakening, and learn that we are to succeed Lord Gwyn. So we head up to Anor Londo, earn the Lord Vessel, fill it with the powerful souls, and face Gwyn in battle. Upon defeating him, our ending is determined by player choice. We link the fire, or we leave as the Dark Lord. However, I don't think that's really an accurate summary of Dark Souls' plot, and here's why. You see, the word plot is a buzzword. Every field of study has them, every field of study needs them, and they're great if you know what they mean. They're a common term that allows people to communicate with each other. Buzzwords are like .zip files. If you cannot extract its contents, then you don't know what's inside. And so you need a guide to help you unpack the buzzword. And for me, I found a useful guide in Aristotle. In his works Poetics, which I think is a great read by the way, he explains plot in this way. Action, he says, implies personal agents, who necessarily possess distinctive qualities, both of character and thought. For it is by these that we qualify actions themselves, thought and character. And these are the two natural causes from which actions spring up, and on action again, all success or failure depends. An examination of the plot of Dark Souls is to examination the characters, their thoughts, and their actions, and to arrange them appropriately. And if we were to take all the relevant characters and their actions in Dark Souls and bring them together, what we will find is that we have missed something very important in the summary that I gave above, namely Gwyn's conspiracy and his manipulation. When we talk with Darkstalker Kath later on in the game, he will tell us the following.
After the advent of fire, the ancient lords found the three souls, but your progenitor found a fourth, unique soul, the dark soul. Your ancestor claimed the dark souls and waited for fire to subside, and soon the flames did fade, and only dark remained. Thus began the Age of Men, the Age of Dark. However, Lord Gwyn trembled at the dark, clinging to his Age of Fire, and in dire fear of humans, and the Dark Lord who would one day be born amongst them. Lord Gwyn resisted the course of nature by sacrificing himself to link the fire and commanding his children to shepherd the humans. Gwyn has blurred your past to prevent the birth of the Dark Lord.
What Koth has to say is so important. Gwyn commanded his children to shepherd the humans, to prevent the birth of the Dark Lord. He has thought, which is his fear, and his action, which is his command to shepherd the humans. Gwyn's children conspired with him to manipulate humans and lead them on a certain path. Gwyndolin may have learned this from Guinevere, but regardless, Gwyndolin and Frampt are part of this conspiracy. And this conspiracy directly impacts the player. From our encounter with the Knight of Astora in the Undead Asylum, to talking with Frampt and the illusion of Guinevere, we are encountering the manipulation that comes from carrying out this conspiracy. We are pushed along a path desired by Gwyn, shepherded to succeed him and link the fire, so that we will not become the Dark Lord that Gwyn feared. And what this means is that Gwyn's conspiracy and manipulation is the main source of conflict that we face in Dark Souls. In a game that is brimming with combat, the primary conflict is not whether we are strong enough to beat the bosses, but whether we catch on to the conspiracy and resist it by choosing a different route. Our successful triumph at the end is not beating Gwyn. If we spend our time fulfilling the wishes of his conspiracy, he'll have won even though he's dead. We only really beat Gwyn when we overcome his manipulative plan and choose our own path forward. And the brilliant thing about Dark Souls is that it is only when we really link the fire at the end that we realize we've been conned. Sure, there are signs along the way, but it's when we start to burn that we move from ignorance to knowledge. I want to turn to Aristotle again. Recognition, as the name indicates, is a change from ignorance to knowledge, producing love or hate between the persons destined by the poet for good or bad fortune. The best form of recognition is coincident with a reversal of the situation. Two parts, then, of the plot, reversal of the situation and recognition, turn upon surprises. A third part is the scene of suffering. It is a destructive or painful action such as death on the stage, bodily agony, wounds, and the like. This citation from Aristotle encapsulates the moment we link the fire. We think we are succeeding Lord Gwyn, but it turns out we don't succeed him as a lord, only as kindling. We take this recognition a turn from ignorance to knowledge, and we are surprised by the ending, a scene of suffering, a destructive or painful action that consumes us. And what I love about this is that when we take this perspective, it means that our fight with Gwyn at the end of the game is not simply an ending to the game. It also functions as a mid-game twist. Only at the end of our journey do we realize that we were swindled the entire time. And we can perhaps have thoughts like, if only I had done things differently, and then immediately we are shoved into New Game Plus. When we evaluate a story's plot, we explore our characters' conflict, where they fail and how they rise back up to triumph over their adversaries. And this plays out multiple ways in Dark Souls. We see this when we lose to bosses again and again until we finally beat them and achieve victory. But in a larger scope, our biggest failure is when we are unable to perceive the manipulation that shepherds us throughout the game until it is too late to change anything. And in turn, our ultimate victory in Dark Souls comes from arriving at the knowledge of Gwyn's manipulation and defeating his plan to prevent the birth of the Dark Lord. We do this by seeking out an alternative path. This plot of Dark Souls that I'm outlining is also thematically integrated into the game. Unfortunately, I can't point to an ancient source to easily explain what a theme is, so you'll have to settle with my own reflection. I used the concept of a literary theme in my PhD dissertation to trace out a thematic coherence within sermons of an old dead guy. And back then, even though I successfully defended my dissertation, I was unhappy with my own depth of knowledge about what a theme was. Having spent more than a year reflecting on this concept, I'm still kind of ambivalent about what a theme actually is, so here are some reflections. People will often treat a literary theme as the main idea or point of the story. I don't really like this approach, because in some ways it says the point of a story lies outside of it, rather than something that draws the reader back into the story. Now granted, different authors and creators will take different approaches to story design and theming, so I can't describe for them how they think of a theme when they craft their own works. But for me, a theme is something that draws us deeper into the story, rather than something that draws us out of it. In short, I think a theme is the repeated use of a proposition or idea to characterize conflict, action, setting, or other parts of a story. Repetition is so vital for a theme to be a theme, but it is something that also connects the different characters, settings, conflicts, and actions together. It is a glue that allows comparisons to work. A theme isn't really the point that the main character learns. It is a way that that lesson is characterized and then shared with other characters so that the cast share a cohesion through their separate conflicts and lessons that they've learned. Or in other words, a theme is a tool to give a sense of unity to separate conflicts and characters throughout a story, through the use of a shared proposition or idea. And of course, readers can see themes that an author doesn't, and an author can put more than one theme in their story. And of course, video games are a bit more complex than, say, a novel. And in Dark Souls, I think Dark Souls 1 has a very obvious theme, among many, but one very obvious one. And I'll put it to you like this. If you accept things at face value, you will be deceived. But if you peer beneath the surface, you will find the truth. That two-line statement is, for me, the theme of Dark Souls 1. This is a proposition that is repeatedly used throughout the game that describes so much of Dark Souls, and it brings a cohesion to all its separate mechanics and story moments. What about illusionary walls? If you accept them at face value, you'll never find them. But if you peer beneath the surface by hitting the wall, you'll uncover the truth. What about a mimic chest? If you accept every chest at face value, you'll die. If you peer beneath the surface, you'll be fine. Locations like Anor Londo, for example. If you accept it at face value, it's a bright, sunlit city, but you'll be deceived. If you peer beneath the surface, you'll learn the truth of its midnight light. The story of Artorias braving the abyss. If you accept that at the surface level, you'll be deceived. But if you peer into the DLC, you'll learn the truth. Enemy design like the basilisks. If you accept their giant eyes as the real one, you'll be deceived. But if you look closely, you'll see their real eyes. This is true of NPC characters and motivations. Characters like Petrus make themselves look good, but they're really rotten. And we can bring this to the main story. If you accept what Framp and Guinevere tell you, you will be deceived. But if you peer beneath the surface, you'll learn the truth. Dark Souls is so full of moments where it deceives you at first glance, and then the game wants you to investigate more, to look beneath the surface and uncover the truth for yourself. This thematic interpretation of Dark Souls perfectly captures the plot that I've laid out. You are constricted by a conspiracy. You are manipulated to achieve an unfavorable purpose, but as you look deeper, you'll find the truth of the matter, and that will allow you to chart a separate course for yourself. And so this plot and theme create a special context for the item descriptions, the dialogue, and the environmental storytelling of the game. The game intentionally deceives you, but it also leaves clues scattered around for you to find and piece together the truth yourself. In an interview with Game no Shokutaku, Miyazaki is asked about Dark Souls' story. I'll link the full interview below, but here are a few select citations that I want to share. In one part he says, "I wanted the player to experience the story, so we did not focus on making a linear storyline. I don't want to tell the story. I prefer the players to unravel it by using their imaginations and our hints." He also says, "I don't want to make a game that chases the story, so we refrained from putting in too much information, and the hints were made vague in order to make the player become one with the story. We just provided information in certain areas to help stimulate the player's imagination, So for those who want to know the story, there are a lot of hints. Dark Souls' story is designed in a similar way to a detective case. A detective encounters an event after it happens, and has to piece together what actually took place based on the clues that they find. This is how Dark Souls was designed. The game gives you clues and hints, and it wants you to peer beneath the surface of its deception and find out what's really going on. And thus our interaction with item descriptions and lore hints are not simply flavoring, they are a core part of the storytelling process. By investigating everything in the game, you are helping your character move from ignorance to knowledge. And thus you are helping your character overcome the main conflict of the game, Gwyn's manipulative shepherding of the undead. And what Dark Souls does so well is that when you find clues and follow them, they will lead you to Koth in the Abyss, and he'll tell you both the quote I shared earlier and the truth behind Gwyn's actions, and set you upon the course of becoming the Dark Lord. Basically, Dark Souls' plot sets up an illusion for you to fall into, and then gives you the tools to shatter it, and learn the truth, and then act upon the truth. I believe this is why interacting with the item descriptions and environmental storytelling of Dark Souls 1 feels like a special experience compared with its sequels. Now, Dark Souls doesn't perfectly execute this concept, but it maintains its illusion long enough for the effect to stay with players, and it should be praised for its approach to its story. And I could ramble on about this subject, but I think I will stop here. If you liked the video, consider commenting your opinions and thoughts below. I'd love to hear them. And thank you for watching. See you later.